Today I'm going to make a video on how to root a rose clipping. So what you want to do is find a piece of rose bush that has at least 2 of these little leaf nodes. And then you're going to want to clip it so that it has plenty of stem to work with. Right after I clip mine, I usually stick them in a cup of water so that they don't dry out at all. I usually put a couple drops of Super Thrive in the water, or in this case I put a couple drops of vitamin B in there because I didn't have any Super Thrive. So as you can see, this clipping actually has 3 leaf nodes, and I really only need 2, because if you leave more than 2 on, really all it's going to do is stress the plant out. So I'm just going to take one of these off. And there you see I have 2 little leaf nodes and then a little bit of stem. And we're going to want to make an incision here on the bottom of the stem and scrape away some of this flesh like this. You do that because that's where the roots are going to come out. First this will callus and then new roots are formed, and if it has a little bit of a wound down here, it will help it to form a better callus and form better roots. So as you can see, I've just taken a little bit of the skin off around the bottom. Put it back in the water. Now, what I prepared before is this little cup. I've written the name of the rose on it so that I'll know which kind it is when I'm done. You're going to want some nice holes in the bottom because drainage is very important. One thing that kills roses the most, I've noticed, is them being too wet. If they're too wet, they'll rot and they'll get moldy and they'll just turn black and die. An important thing is to make sure that the soil is really moist. I've already wetted this with some water. You want to make sure it's really moist, but once I'm going to put this in this plastic bag, and once it's in there, you want to make sure that it's not sitting in water. So if it sits in water, it'll rot. So anyway, I've just used some Miracle-Gro soil in here. Some people like to use sand or seed starter mix because it's more sterile, but I've noticed that Miracle-Gro works fine for me. So I filled this up with Miracle-Gro soil, and I used a clear cup because I can see when the roots will start to show through. There'll be white roots once this starts to root. So fill this up with Miracle-Gro soil, wet it down, and then I just make a little hole with this marker so that I can put the clipping in. And I use this Schultz Take Root rooting hormone for mine. So I just open this up. Once this is nice and wet and it's been soaking in the water for a little while, just stick it in there. Get some nice rooting powder on it. And then you just stick it right here in the hole. Squeeze it together a little. And then what you're going to want to do is put it in a Ziploc bag. So I just stick it in here, and I seal it up partially, leave a little bit left at the end unsealed, and then I blow into the bag. As you can see, that makes a little terrarium for it. Now this terrarium will keep it moist inside so that it doesn't dry out before it gets the chance to root. And if this bag gets flat at all, you're going to want to blow some more air into it. One thing you don't want is for the leaves inside to be touching the sides of the bag, and you don't want any water to pool down at the bottom because you don't want this to get too wet or it'll rot. The leaves will probably fall off. These original leaves will probably fall off. They may or they may not. They usually do for me though. As long as the stem is still green, your plant still has a chance and is probably still alive. New roots will, or new leaves will start to grow out of these two little joints. So you'll get new leaves out of these two things eventually, or maybe just one of these, and you'll start to see some white roots down at the bottom, and that's how you'll know it's ready. You don't really want to mess with this at all while it's rooting. You just want to leave it alone. The more I've left mine alone in the past, I've come to realize the better that they do. Now if one of these leaves fall off and you notice it's rotting in there or something, you can take that out. But don't tug on it, don't mess with it at all. Just leave it alone as much as you can, unless you notice it's dead. Yeah. Now, I'm going to show you where I generally put this. I try to keep it in an area that's not full sun, so I'll show you that. These are some of my roses that have been rooting for about a year. Some of these I started and some I had mailed to me by people online. Traded them. There's some more down there. They don't grow quite as well in a pot as they do in the ground. These are some more I have. They're quite a bit bigger. These are about a year old as well. These are the first year they've been in the ground. I did have them in the house in the winter time, so under lights. But they grow quite quickly, I think, and they bloom quite quickly. And they grow quite nice on their own roots, I think. This is where I keep my roses indoors. It's a northern facing window. It doesn't get any bright, full sunlight. It only gets light from the sun, but no full sunlight at all. So the stuff in here stays pretty cool. You don't want to put it in full sun at all. A northern facing window is best. It needs the light, but no direct actual sun rays on it. The worst thing I've noticed for trying to root a rose is if it gets too hot and too much sun too quickly, or if it gets too wet and it sits in a pool of water. You don't want any water down in here. This is another way I like to do them. This is a little terrarium I've made out of a soda bottle and a fountain drink cup, and it works really well. I like it better than the bag because the bag will sometimes uninflate and you have to blow it back up, but this stays inflated, and you can just pop it apart like that to look and see what you've got. And there's my little rose. It's not quite rooted yet, but it's got some new leaves on it. And I will show you how to tell when one is actually done. Let's see here. Sorry, this one's a little dry because I just took it out of the terrarium. You can't really see the roots on it. Can't really see the root. Well, I can see the roots, but you'll be able to see some white roots right here inside of the cup. You kind of can see that, I think. And that's when you'll know it's rooted and you can take it out of the container. You want to take it out really slowly. If it's in one of these bottles, I like that best because I can just take the lid off and let it kind of acclimate to the real life, I guess. But with a bag, I guess I would just open it a little bit for a day and then maybe take it out. And I use a spray bottle to mist leaves sometimes so they don't get too dried out, even though these kind of have on this one. But yeah, let me show you what the roots actually look like. So here's what the roots actually look like. You can see that one's pretty well rooted. That's a couple of months old. You'll want to leave them in their baggies for probably anywhere from a month to 2 or 3 months. As long as they're still green, as long as it still has a stem that's green, even if it doesn't have any leaves, it's still good. If it turns brown or black or gets mold on it, then you'll know that your roses died. Thank you for watching my video. I hope it helped. Sorry about the shakiness. I've just been on my own camera. Thanks.